Pomzetia. Thank you for joining me once again on this cold Wednesday morning from Johannesburg. Thank you very much, Liberty, for giving us the opportunity to do these lessons for the learners at home, and do yourself a favor, the Tenfold education app. Please go and have a look at that. So last week we revised climatology, geomorphology, we looked at some of the questions. Now, once again, I just want to focus on the structure of your question paper. So if you look at our question paper that you're going to have in the end of the year and in your prelim examination, it consists of two sections, section A and section B. Okay, now section A consists of question 1 and 2, and these questions is regarding climate plus geomorphology. Okay, section B, we're focusing on settlements, like rural and urban, which we're going to discuss today. We're going to look at some of the questions from last year's question paper regarding rural and urban settlements, as well as a section, if you're back at school, we're looking at economic geography. Okay, so this topic should be very relevant to you because that's what we're busy discussing in school. Okay, before I want to continue, please, once we're done over here, tune into the news channel, have a look. We got a monster of a cold front approaching South Africa. The southwestern Cape is going to experience lots of rain, extremely strong winds, so be safe if you live in the Western Cape, especially in Cape Town, Cape Peninsula. Stormy weather approaching you for the next couple of days, and we're definitely going to feel the brunt of this probably by Saturday, the guys that live up here in Joburg. But let's just get straight to this question paper. So today we're going to have a look at section B, and when we look at section B, we're going to look at the questions being asked regarding rural and urban settlements, as well as economic geography. So like I've mentioned, economic geography is quite relevant. We basically be busy discussing it in class this current period. Now, our first question with section B is column A and B. So match column A with column B, the correct term with what they've mentioned over here. So first of all, if you look at question 3.1.1, the ranking of urban settlements from smallest to largest. Now, I'm going to give you a tip over here, grade 12s. If you think of ranking, it's a hierarchy. Immediately in every single textbook, if you're using the platinum, if you're using the focus, doesn't matter. If you look at the hierarchy of settlements, it's usually a triangle that's been represented as such. Now, the question states ranking urban settlements. Okay. Now, very importantly over here, they did not ask rural settlements. Okay, they've asked you urban settlements. Now, how do we classify the difference between a rural settlement and an urban settlement? Okay, I'm just going to make some notes in the bottom of our page over here. We classify rural settlements where primary activities takes place. If you look at urban settlements, it's usually where secondary plus tertiary activities taking place. Okay. Now, the definition for settlements is where people live. Now, obviously, rural settlements focus on primary activities such as forestry, fishing, farming, and mining. And urban settlements focus, it can be, we do have different types of urban settlements as well. For instance, central place towns, break of bulk points, etc. But the question asked, what do we call the classification of different urban settlements? Now, if I can remember correctly, we can divide it up. What's the smallest type of urban settlement? And that's a town. And then we have a city. And then we have a metropolis. Then we have a conurbation. Now, in South Africa, this is the only type of urban settlements we find in South Africa. and last one is a megalopolis, which we find usually in America or in Japan. It's where, for instance, on the east coast of America, we got New York City, you have Boston, you have Washington, D.C., major conurbations situated next to each other. The only conurbation we have in South Africa is the PWV. Okay, Pretoria Witwatersrand Vereniging. Now, if we're quickly going to have a look at the correct answer over there, 3.1.1, the ranking of urban settlements from smallest to largest. The correct answer, I'm just going to write the answer right next to the numbers, is going to be C. It's going to be an urban hierarchy. Okay. Now, if you look at question 3.1.2, it's a settlement that provides goods and services to the surrounding rural area. Okay. Now, this settlement, if I can just draw a diagram, we got a small settlement over here. So all around this settlement, we have farms. Okay. So the settlement over here, I'm going to use an example like Ceres. It's a small town in the Western Cape. Now, if you look at Ceres, Ceres is basically, besides for a little town, it's a rural area. It's a rural settlement. Lots of farming activities taking place, especially fruit farming. So Ceres, the small town, you probably know Ceres as the little fruit juice that you usually consume during break. But if you look at Ceres, Ceres, the actual town, provides goods and services to the surrounding farming areas. And when I talk about goods and services, I'm talking about pharmacies, I'm talking about shopping centers, I'm talking about garages, for instance, Toyota garages, to help service these farmers on their Toyota bakkies. Okay, and farm implementation and schooling, for instance. Remember, service, tertiary education. It might be hospitals, it might be schooling, it might be nursing, colleges, etc. Okay, goods, anything that you need on a daily basis. So it provides goods and services to the surrounding rural area. And the correct answer, we refer to that settlement as a central place town. Okay, because it's centralized, if you go back to this diagram, it's centralized between rural farms. Okay, so keep in mind, just another tip that I can give you, I can just integrate with this question. If you look at as this represents the isolated farmsteads, what do we call this type of pattern? We call it dispersed. They are far from each other. Okay. Now, when the settlements are very close to one another, what do we say? It's nucleated. Okay, just a small tip I've added to this question. Now, if you look at our next question, I just want to write down next to 3.1.2, a settlement that provides goods and services to the surrounding rural population is known as a central place town. And the correct answer will be E. Now, question 3.1.3 states an area from where urban settlements draw their customers. Now, grade 12s, I'm going to highlight in column B 3 terms. You need to understand these concepts because when the examiner asks these questions, they usually ask all 3 of them together, okay, because it creates some sort of confusion. And I'm just going to highlight the 3 of them that goes with this question because each of them means a different thing, okay? It's got a different understanding. If you look at 3.1.3, so I'm just going to highlight the sphere of influence, the threshold population, and the range, okay? And I'm just quickly going to explain that to you. First, I'm going to explain sphere of influence, the threshold population, and range because I don't want you to get confused between them. Now, earlier, a couple of weeks ago, we actually discussed this, and I don't want you to get confused between them. So let's just first look at the sphere of influence. Okay, I just want to write each and every one of them down, and I want to go and have a look at the threshold population and the range. Sorry, just want to wipe that off. Start all over. And lastly, the range. Okay. Now I'm going to start with range first, and I'll work my way back up. Now the range is how far are you willing to travel to go and buy a product? Okay. How far are you willing to get a specific service? Okay. Now, so I'm going to use two examples. For instance, a brain surgeon and a barber, a hairdresser. How far are you willing to travel to go and get your hair cut? For myself, I don't have much hair left, but probably going to do 2 kilometers max. Okay. To go and see a brain surgeon, I'm willing to travel much further. If I live in Cape Town and I need to go and see the best possible brain surgeon, I will be willing to travel all the way to Johannesburg. Okay. So if you look at range, and if you go back to the table over here, let's see if we can see that concept in it. Okay, so range is I. If we quickly look at 3.8, the maximum distance that people travel to buy goods and service. That's the range. So I've just basically provided you with 3.1.5's answer. So I'm just going to write there an I, but we still haven't answered 3.1.3. So the range is how willing are you to go and travel for that goods or that service. Now I'm talking about a service like a barbershop or a brain surgeon. When we talk about goods, how far are you willing to travel to go and buy bread and milk? And how far are you willing to travel to go and buy yourself a Ferrari? Okay. Now, obviously, we don't have many Ferrari garages in South Africa because it's an exotic item. It's a high order good. We're going to discuss it a little bit later. But you will not be willing to travel very far to go and buy bread and milk, am I correct? But you will, if you earn lots of money, to go and travel quite a distance to get your hands onto a Ferrari. Now, so the correct answer for 3.1.5 was the range, because that's the maximum distance you are willing to travel. Now, if we go back to the question, an area from where the urban settlement draw its customers. Okay. Now, the correct answer over there, if you look at the area, let's go back to Ceres. Okay. So the surrounding areas around Ceres, okay, where Ceres draw all these customers around it. So the area, depending how big this area is, let's say it's from 40 to 100 kilometers radius. That area that Ceres draws customers are known as the sphere of influence. Okay. Now, once again, just want to go back to our question. The area from where urban settlements draw its customers, the correct answer will be A. Now, just to explain this to you. Now, let's quickly compare Johannesburg and let's compare a small town, for instance, like Kroonstad, for example, in the Free State. Okay, or Harry Smith. What do you think is the sphere of influence of Johannesburg? It's going to be absolutely massive. Okay. But if you look at Harry Smith, the sphere of influence is going to be smaller. Okay. Why is the sphere of influence bigger for Johannesburg? Once again, going to discuss it a little bit later in this question paper. We're going to look at low and high order goods. Depending what the urban area offers you, depending how big the sphere of influence is going to be. Now, the last one that we're going to have a look at is the threshold population. Okay, it's that term over there. Now, the threshold population means, I'm just going to tell you the answer and I'll quickly explain it to you. The threshold population is the minimum number of customers needed to make a business profitable. Okay. How many people is needed for you to earn money? Now, once again, I want to use the example of the barbershop and the guy selling the Ferraris. Okay. if you're a barber and you need to cut people's hairs, how many times do you need to cut people's hair to make a profit? Okay. How many Ferraris does a person need to sell to make a profit? Obviously, because we're dealing with different types of products. Okay. Different types of services over here. Okay. Very important. Coming back to the barbershop, right? You need to cut lots of people's hair every single day on a daily basis to make a profit. But if you look at, for instance, the brain surgeon, probably need to go and see, might do a couple operations a year to be profitable because it's a high order service. Coming back to milk and to Ferraris. Now, to make a profit on milk, you need to sell quantities, lots of liters of milk to be able to make a profit. But for instance, the Ferrari garage probably needs to sell a couple of Ferraris to make decent profit. So that's the threshold population. How many people do you need to make a profit? Okay. So I've just, because these three concepts goes hand in hand with one another. Now, so 3.1.4, we can just write there, the correct answer is H. Now, if you come to 3.1.6, the types of goods that are purchased frequently. So I've just mentioned that to you. Now remember, goods that's been purchased. Do not get confused. I love what the examiner did over here, right? He tried to get you guys confused. I just want to use a different color pen. He tried to get you confused between the following: high order goods and high order centers. Okay, they're completely different. Okay. Let me just quickly differentiate between the two of them. What's a high order goods? For instance, a Ferrari. What's high order centers? Is places like Johannesburg that can give you services of a higher order. For instance, brain surgeons. Okay. Once again, if you go quickly look at D, low order goods and low order centers, it depending on the different type of urban settlement. A low order goods, for instance, is a spaza shop selling bread and milk. Okay. A low order center is a town with only low order services. Okay. You are not going to find a brain surgeon in a small town such as Kroonstad. Okay. Because the threshold population is obviously going to be too small. So you will rather find that type of service in a place like Johannesburg. There's a conurbation. So let's just quickly go back to our question. The type of goods that are purchased frequently. That's question 3.1.6. And the correct answer will be low order goods. We buy bread and milk on a daily basis. Okay, we're returning from them maybe twice a week, once a week, maybe 3 times a week. Okay, so the correct answer over there is going to be D. Now, if we look at question 3.1.7, few services and functions are available. Now, we've just mentioned it. Services and functions. Okay, like I've mentioned Kroonstad, for example. You won't find a brain surgeon in Kroonstad, are you? You're probably not going to find a Ferrari dealership in Kroonstad, are you? Definitely not. So, how can we classify it? It's going to be a low order center, very importantly. Okay, so the correct answer over there is going to be F. If we quickly have a look at question 3.1.8, goods and services that are not purchased regularly. Okay, once again, we think about expensive stuff. Okay, do you think people buy Ferraris every day, every month? No, it's too expensive. Okay, it's a very exclusive market. Do you think people go and see brain surgeons on a daily basis, like your GP? Probably not, definitely not. Okay, so this type of goods and services, we can classify it that are not purchased regularly. Okay, once in a while. And the correct answer for that will be high order goods. Something that's very, very expensive. Okay. Hopefully I've cleared that up for you.